And I know say the country where we they benefit from as Nigeria youths. Now Canada. 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 Canada.
Canada. Canada. Canada. Canada. Canada. Canada.
Welcome to another episode of Soft Chaos. Today we're going to be doing a story on chaos in the Republic, and like the title of the video says, we're going to be talking about pretty much the Japa syndrome, focusing mainly on using Canada as an example, but focusing on countries whose immigration policy pretty much tantamounts to a brain drain, and on countries like America who seem to have developed a rhetoric of sort of a war on immigrants, and also highlighting how exactly this is affecting Nigeria and Nigeria's economy, the youth, and what we as a country, that's the government, and as the people can do to help or make this not have a lasting negative effect on our country. So I'm going to give you guys a bit of a break. I don't want this to be a long video. If you really want to get into the brass tacks, go on Medium. I post full scripts with sources and statistical data on there for those of you who want to read more and get more information. So I'll attach the link to the Medium in the description of the video. So just go on there, watch it, read up. But this video is pretty much just a quick. Again, like I always do, this channel is meant to allow me to put out ideas that, I either ruminating in my head or I've noticed and I have a take on it, right? So I'll give you guys a bit of a break. Let me not yap on too long, and then we'll get right into it.
Canada.
Canada.
So as we know, or for those of us who don't know, the Japa Phenomenon in Nigeria is alarming everybody, and it's not to any fault of any Nigerian, but most Nigerians would not pass up an opportunity to leave the country and start over a new life if they had the opportunity to. I'd like to believe all of us know what Japa means. It's a Yoruba term which means to pretty much to leave. And it's pretty much the mass emigration of Nigerians seeking better opportunities. And studies have shown that this emigration has only increased to the point that within the last decade, it has actually gone up by 29%. And in my opinion, would have gone up even more if not for the fact that there's just so many people who are not even able to come up with the funds for a daily bread, talk less of having to apply for a Canadian or a UK or a US visa. Now, there are several push factors that come into play and make this a reality, some of which are the unemployment levels and poor pay. So you live in a country where youth unemployment has hit 53.4% as of 2020, and wages seem to be stagnant, especially for those working in public sector. Wages seem to be stagnant, even though price of living seems to be increasing. You can also point to the economic hardship, the inflation, the policies that led to our currency weakening overnight, the cost of staple foods rising drastically. So many reasons as to why This like so many factors that actually push people towards wanting to quote unquote japa. And then of course you have the classic corrupt and weak governance. Everything from rigged election, nepotism, bribery, a lack of a real justice system. We can keep going on and on. I think it's clear. I definitely have some criticisms of the Nigerian government. So, but that's not what this video is about. But yes, there's a lot of things the government is doing that makes the country unbearable and makes the prospect of having to leave to go to another country enticing for a lot of Nigerians. We also have insecurity. You have Boko Haram. You have the Fulani tribesmen killing people for their cows. You have militias, unknown gunmen, and even violence from the state. I mean, look at the End SARS protest. So, and then you have the demographic pressures. The fact that we are one of the most populous countries in the world. I think we're like number 7 in the world. And most of our population isn't old. Most of our population are youth or working age adults. So we have an oversupply of graduates but low social mobility, and over time that has built a culture where these kids growing up now see leaving the country as the only real way they can make it. And what the impact this has had on Nigeria is the fact that we have experienced severe brain drain in almost all major industries. In the medical field, doctors are living in droves. In this professional field, everyone from lawyers to engineers to technicians are living in droves. Teachers, bankers, which means the country is actively putting itself at a disadvantage. But I think that kind of gives you a real summary, an idea of what really the factors itself in Nigeria that really lead to not lead to, but that add on the pressure for the average Nigerian to feel like the option of leaving is the best option they have to them, right? So if you look at it, so we'll talk about because throughout the video, the next topic of the video, I want us to talk about the Canadian immigration system, which I'm personally familiar with. Then we'll talk about the American immigration system, and then I also want to then shed light on why those policies differ and how we as a country can respond to that's those of us in Nigeria, how we can respond to the effects these things have on the country, and also those Nigerians who are in diaspora, what they can do to help. Because the reality is a lot of Nigerians in diaspora, I'm very sure they are grateful for the fact that they were able to leave, but you can tell they definitely miss home. They eat Nigerian food, they hang out with Nigerian friends, they want to create a community, and that's all well and good, but we could all be doing that at home. So how can you guys help to make that happen? And then we'll wrap it up with a quick conclusion, and that'll be pretty much the video.
Canada.
So we'll start with the Canadian immigration system. Like I said, I have a personal experience with that. Canada intentionally attracts skilled migrants or students to fill labor shortages and support economic growth. The Canadian 2026 Canadian immigration plan includes getting in there are about 380,000 new permanent residents, approximately 63% under economic skill-based immigration. They use systems like express entry, point systems, student pathways to bring in globally educated workers. Nigeria is one of the top sources of Canadian immigrants, and the Canadian migrants and students. Study permits jumped from 8,000 in 2019 to 65,000 plus, so over 65,000 by 2022. So in 3 years, they saw almost I think that's like a 6-time increase in applications. So Nigerians are living in droves. And again, as someone who's experienced the Canadian system, I can tell you that's really how the system is designed. Now, this doesn't mean you can't go to Canada and potentially get a PR. I have a friend of mine whose mom left recently, and she got a PR, and she didn't go as a student, and she didn't necessarily go as a skilled worker. So there are ways, but they are way more difficult. So yeah, the system is pretty much designed to bring in skilled workers. That's really what they designed the system for. So yeah, and there's a few critiques for this system because Canada benefits from human capital that's trained by poorer countries. When doctors from Nigeria flee, engineers from Nigeria flee, technicians, both scientific and artisanal technicians flee, we don't benefit from the fact that they have been trained in our system. Canada gets to benefit all of that. So to me, that's a critic because it simply means I won't say you're leaving us with not the best, because again, you can't really say what's the best because a lot of people don't even have access to good schools. So, but the few that we are able to train, you drain them out of our country. And 22% of Canadian doctors, this is evidence of the fact that 22% of Canadian doctors and 7% of nurses are foreign trained. Policies indirectly strip Africa of skilled talent, which is passive recruitment. They don't directly advertise it, but if you know, you know. If you know, you know. Like, you're getting ethical tension. It basically means Canada wins, Nigerian loses, right? We lose out on our best talent, we lose out on our trained talent, and Canada gains. They grow their economy, they grow their population, they do all of this while still making money off of these people, because it's not like doing these processes are free. To pay for a visa or get a visa, you are paying just for the processing alone. You're paying close to $5,000 to $10,000 because you're gonna buy a ticket to fly. You're gonna buy you're gonna buy a ticket to fly from Nigeria there. You're gonna pay for the application. You're gonna pay when you go to the embassy. You're gonna pay to do your medical scans. So there's so much money that is involved in the process. So it's not free. So they are making money from you and benefiting from you from the very moment you decide you want to go there. So yeah, we'll move on to the US. My issue with the US is not really about the immigration policy, but specifically under Trump, it's the way. Sorry, my issue with the US is not really about the immigration, but specifically under Trump is about the immigration policy. So yeah, I had the other way around. And recently under Trump, it's become hostile. That meme where they're like, "I show you hostile."
He's a fall guy. I'm the brains of the organization.
Order.
Permission to treat the witness as hostile.
Granted.
Hostile? I show you hostile.
That's pretty much what it's become, right? And U.S. immigration discourse is highly politicized. Migrants frequently get villainized. Right now, the right wing, the Republicans, which are the right wing people, they control most of American politics. They have 6 out of the 9 judges in the Supreme Court, which is weird because the Supreme Court is meant to be a non-partisan entity. That's mostly the reason why they have lifelong tenures. So in my opinion, if if your Supreme Court judges are going to be partisan, I think you should strip them of the ability to have lifelong tenures. I think it's only fair. If you're not able to maintain your neutrality, you shouldn't be allowed to have lifelong tenures, because that defeats the purpose. They control the House, they control the Senate, and they have a Republican as president. So they pretty much control the most of US politics right now. And in my opinion, they've been doing a fantastic job of it, because all of a sudden ICE has become, I think, broke the record for becoming the most funded US agency in its history. And they've truly put the money to work. Kids are getting pulled out of schools, teachers are getting pulled out of schools, people are getting ambushed by men in masks on their way home from work, on their way to work. People are getting harassed in their homes, at their places of work, at their places of worship. It's a shit show over there. It's a real shit show over there. And based on the polls, I wouldn't say majority of Americans support immigration enforcement. Majority of the right wing does support what is going on, but I think overall Americans do support the fact that they do not want more illegal immigrants coming into the country. So they believe, even on the left and on the moderate side, they do believe you need to go through the official process to get your papers, which I think is fair. So, but the right seems to push that to the extreme and just round everyone up. If you don't look white or smell white or talk white, they're wrapping you up, which I think is a bit ridiculous. Political leaders, especially Trump, frame migrants as an invasion, using fear to mobilize voters, and it works. Immigration reforms repeatedly blocked due to partisan politics. Despite benefiting economically from immigrants, the US climate can be unwelcoming, and that is the truth. Americans, a lot of the jobs that these immigrants do, they don't want to do it. And yes, you can go down in the comments and say, oh, what are these jobs? But the reality is, if Americans were willing to do these jobs, the immigrants who were coming would not. The reality is, if Americans were willing to do these jobs, they would not have been available the jobs would not have been available to attract as many immigrants as the country attracts. So the reality is, your people don't want to do those jobs. They don't want to work on the farms. They don't want to clean the toilets. They don't want to clean the floors. They don't want to be your servers. They don't want to be your cooks. So, and these people still contribute. They are the definition of taxation without representation, because they do pay taxes, because they have social security numbers. They pay taxes, but they can't claim any of the benefits. They pay taxes, but they can't enjoy any of the benefits. And now you villainize them, and they fear for their lives, they fear for their safety. And what's the result for Nigerians? The US, I hope, feels a lot less friendly, which inevitably could even push more migrants towards countries like Canada and the UK. And although I do believe there are a lot more, US still receives a lot more immigrants from Nigeria, because they weirdly like Nigerians, because again, Nigerians who are living in Nigeria are living because they want to put their hands to work and they want to make some money. So wherever they find themselves, Nigerians are always known to be, we mostly don't collect social benefits, because we will find a way to get a job. We would mostly be earning, we pay rent, we contribute to the society. So we are like the model immigrants, if there's a way if that's a thing that is used to describe us. So I can see Nigerians still willing to flock to the US, because they know, although there's a stigma around immigration, they might necessarily be able to still make it there. And especially for the professionals, all over the West, actually all over the world, there's a shortage of doctors and nurses. So whether you're going to Canada, whether you're going to the US, if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, if you work in the medical field, you're pretty much guaranteed a shot to get in, right? So yeah. And why do these countries' policies differ? Canadian immigration is demographic and economic necessity, meaning they have an aging population, which leads to labor shortages. So their immigration is designed to replenish or bolster their population with young, vibrant people who are also professionally trained to fill in the gaps where their aging population and might not be able to fill them in. So even though it's a way bigger country, their population is actually not as sufficient as it. I think Canada has like a total of like 50 million people that live in the country. I think I haven't checked the recent census for Canada, but the last time I checked, I think it was about 50, I would say maybe 60 million people. But I'll put it on the screen what the actual population of Canada is, right? Compared to the US, where they have about 350 million to 400 million people in the country. So there's a big contrast, right? So we'll go on a break now, and then we'll then talk about the ramifications of what this means for Nigerians and how we can handle it. How can Nigeria respond to the Japa syndrome? Number one, we need to focus on rebuilding our economy. We need to diversify beyond oil. Everyone has been telling this to the Nigerian government. We used to be a country that had a flourishing agricultural sector, a flourishing creative industry sector, and a flourishing manufacturing sector. We need to go back to that. We need to boost agriculture. We need to boost manufacturing. We need to boost the tech industry. I have a brother who has a startup that he's working on. 2 startups actually, and they are going pretty well. But I see him every day, and I can feel how hard it is for him to get things done, because we live in a place where money speaks. So you're somehow expected to prove that you can make money, but even when you don't have money, it's like a catch-22 of some sort. We need to improve our infrastructure. We need to sort out power. We need to sort out internet, roads, water, health. The government needs to support small, medium businesses with grants, loans, and hubs that will encourage people to go and patronize these businesses. Enable remote/digital work to keep talent in Nigeria, right? Make it easier for these people to work remotely, because the reality is, if you're able to earn your dollar while still being in Nigeria, there's a higher chance that Nigeria will benefit from that compared to you physically carrying your things and leaving the country. So enable these people to work remotely, and you will see the benefit of that. You will. It's how these things work. Number 2 is we need to improve education and skills. Nigeria needs a serious curriculum rehaul. I think, again, I've said it before in our education episode. I'll highlight that about Nigeria's education system. The primary and secondary school education is actually pretty decent, but what they teach in the higher education institutes like universities and polytechnics needs to be reformed. We need to start teaching people what is market relevant, what they would actually use when they are done with school. That's what we need to start teaching people. So we also need to offer technical training, vocational training. In the world that we live in today, a lot of people look down on those jobs. Plumbers still need to exist. Electricians still need to exist. Builders, the people that help build houses, still need to exist. There's a reason why all these jobs were invented, because they are the things that when the house gets built, when the road gets built, when your office gets built, is the plumber that is going to make sure your pipes are working right. It's the electrician that is going to make sure you installed your lights and they are working right. It's the HVAC technician that will come and install the AC and come for regular service and maintenance. These jobs make a lot of money. A lot of money. That's another way to get into Canada, by the way. If you're willing to go there and take a vocational training, maybe as an electrician or as a plumber, they will give you a PR, and you stand to make a hell of a lot of money. You take an apprenticeship for a couple of years. By the time you're done with your apprenticeship, you open your own liquor business, and before you know it, within 5, 10, 15 years, if you want to sell, there's VCs and what do you call them, venture capitals, and the ones that manage wealth funds that will buy up your business. And then for those who don't want to sell, you get to pass down to your kids. So I for me, it's a no-brainer. And offer scholarships. Go to the rural areas, offer these kids scholarships, because when you offer kids scholarships, just like what Canada does, you can have conditions to it, meaning you offer them a scholarship and there's a condition where they have to work in the country for 5, maybe 10 years. That locks down your talent. Of course, this has to be matched with jobs that pay well, but yeah, offer these kids scholarships. Fix the educational system, and we need to strengthen our governance. We need to fight corruption we need to really fight corruption. We need to digitize public services. We need to ensure merit-based public sector or credible elections. We need to also make sure we allow diasporans to be able to elect. I have a feeling that if we allow, just like in the US and in Canada, if you're a Canadian or US citizen but you live outside of the country for some reason, maybe you are military, or your job makes it so you have to be outside of the country for a certain amount of time, and it's election period, you are allowed to mail in your vote from wherever you are in the world. I think if we started doing that, you would be surprised just how much it would dilute the power of all these politicians, because you sure as shit are not giving a diaspora and 1,000 naira and thinking that buys him your vote. So that's what I would wager, and because all these things would really help to restore trust in the mind of the youths and the working adults of this country, that there is a sign for the future, that there is hope. We need to actively incentivize talents to stay instead of or return instead of leaving in the first place. Offer incentives, housing, grants, recognition award. I don't know why in the College of Medicine, the Nigerian government offering a special grant is not the most sought after thing. Why is Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation the biggest grant you can get as a doctor? Why? It shouldn't be that way. Build returnee programs like Ghana and Kenya have done. Provide opportunities for returnees to start businesses easily. Like, these are things that we need to take advantage of. These things we need to engage with the diaspora, encourage them to invest through submit an easy business registration, expand the diaspora volunteer program, so professionals like medical doctors, technicians, teachers, we can offer programs where they are willing to volunteer to come here and give that expertise to Nigerians on the ground, which in turn improves the prospect of for Nigeria. And like I said earlier, enable diaspora voting rights and build stronger networks for knowledge transfer. These things are not written in stone, they are all set in sand. We can implement these things and give ourselves a bit of an advantage. And what can Nigerians do? What can Nigerians in the diaspora do in return? We can invest in Nigeria. We can send remittances strategically. We sent, I think the money we sent as of 2020, I think, was about 6% of the GDP. I think it's about 20 something billion dollars. If we can send 20 something billion dollars just for the fuck of it, I know most people don't send it for that, but we need to start sending them strategically. Put it towards sending your family members to school. Put it towards helping them start a business. Put it towards helping them put it towards your own business. If you have a business that's already working in Canada, open a branch of it in Nigeria. Put people who you can trust in charge of the business. Mentor and share your skills online. Advocate for Nigeria internationally. Don't be like Kemi Badenoch or whatever her name is, who actively finds every reason to shit on Nigeria simply because she managed to grow up in the UK. Literally be any other type of Nigerian. Be proud of where you come from. If you are in a place of power, advocate. Sending aid, but direct them to the proper channels rather than into the pockets of politicians, and the rest of the country barely gets a trickle of that. Promote Nigerian culture and business wherever you are in the world. Now this one I think Nigerians do pretty easily, so because again we are proud of our culture, we are proud of ourselves as Nigerians, so I think we do this by default. And join and participate in diaspora return programs and summits. We need to want to come back home. A diasporan who leaves and you have kids, but your kids don't know where you're from, your kids can't speak your mother's language or your father's language, I think that should be addressed. So again, like I said, I don't want the video to be too long, so I'm gonna just wrap up, do the conclusion, and it's just basically pointing out the fact that Canada's policy drains talents as it solves Canada's problems, and the US often demonizes immigrants despite its need for skilled workers. The root causes lie in Nigeria's economy and governance, and only by massive reforms at home and strategic engagement by a diaspora can Nigeria become attractive enough that Japa becomes a choice, not a desperation move. Now, what does this mean? Although Canada welcomes skilled immigrants and the US often politicizes and demonizes them, and Nigeria loses human capital as a result of both foreign policies and domestic failures, the solution lies in these reforms. We need to make sure we are putting in proper moves to grow our economy. We need to curtail corruption in our government. We need to make sure we need to give the diaspora a reason to want to engage with us, not just come back home for dirty December and leave, but make it a dirty year. Come back and give back to the country that raised you. I understand it's sometimes difficult. A country that basically made it so you had to leave. It's counterintuitive to want to come back and help, but try. A lot of people will benefit from you wanting to come back and help. So with coordinated action, I think Nigeria can shift from brain drain to brain circulation and eventually become a country worth returning to. So we're gonna wrap the video up there today. I want you guys to like, subscribe, comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the brain drain going on right now. Please be nice in the comments, and the full script for this video has been uploaded to Medium, so for those of you who want a more in-depth reading on my take, and it will be, of course, the full script is backed with official statistics, sources, all of that. So if you want that, go on to Medium. I'll attach the link on the description of the video and on the channel, so you can go on there, read in more detail, and hopefully understand or get a better idea of what I'm trying to talk about. So please have yourself a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
New videos uploaded every week. So subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoy the journey.